Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 95. This is Friday, October 20th, 2023, and I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thanks so much for joining me. I think I have some new subscribers and maybe new viewers, which I'm delighted about, and of course I'm delighted about all of the returning folks also. All of you should always feel free to leave comments and, the things we do in Flosstube. Thanks so much. So Flosstube has to do with cross stitch, and Variety Show has to do with something else. The last few weeks, there's been a sort of light on Variety Show. It's been really focused on cross stitch, but I think today is a legitimate Variety Show topic, and we'll see what that is in a little while. But let's talk about cross stitch first. This is the booklet for what we received at our project for the weekend at the Great British Sampler weekend in Swindon, England. And I've been working on the pillow. It's a mattress finish pillow that commemorates the weekend. And so I think I had those top two things done before, and I'm almost done with that first side. It's going to say September 29th, which it was interesting as I was stitching the word September and the date. I realized that in England, they would have said 29 September. So that's kind of interesting to me that it's set up that way. But remaining for this is another long side piece like this, which is left blank in the middle, and you're supposed to put your name in it using the alphabet from the little sampler. And then another end piece that will say 2023. And then there's the bottom, which I think is intended to be linen, which I think I'll have plenty of linen. And the other half of this piece will be enough for this little sampler. And this is 36 count Woodsmoke by Tabby Cat Linens, and I think it was dyed especially for the event. So that's been very fun to work on. Red and green, sort of Christmassy. It's fun. Winter Rose Manor. I feel like I took a long stretch of time working on this, but I didn't get much done. But the basket is very large. It's very large. So that's what I worked on, is the basket. I intend to keep working on this every week. I really should bring this border up. I need a couple more cherries or whatever they are down here, and then come up the side. And I should come up because this border, this little section of border here, is actually a lot of stitches that goes over the basket. And then there's, it's more sampler-ish there in this section with things that are more spaced out. That means more counting, but they're pretty little things, little doodads. So that's very fun. This is, of course, Brenda Gervais with I Needle and Thread. This is the called for everything. Called for, it's Brenda's Brew, 36 count linen, and the overdyed from various manufacturers. Jane Thompson, 1838, by the Scarlet House. This was an exclusive offered through the Homespun Sampler Facebook group, I think. And I got it. This was, so 4 times a year, I think they work with a shop and a designer to create an exclusive. That Facebook group does. And this is how far I am. I think I haven't done any more of the sort of the skeleton of the border, but I did. Again, it took forever, but it doesn't look like much. A lot of that lighter green border, and I added some more of the leaves to the skeleton border. So, and I started her name, Jane T. I wanted to just get that in there and begin to do there's a bunch of flowers right here that go under her name, which I wanted to get a start on. This is all over 2. There's no over 1 in this. I believe that is true. And it's very satisfying to work on. I enjoy it. This is 36 count Sleeping Bear, and it's NPI silks. I understand why people like working with silk. This NPI and a Verissois, which is what the Great British Sampler Weekend project is in, as well as I'm doing Hannah Campbell in a Verissois. I understand that. This is Mathilde from the Letters from Europe red box. This is from France. She's from France. And I, was all hot to trot about getting this done before this week's video or next week. Well, no. I did start that, or get a little bit more done on this, that one border right under here. So after that's finished, I have 5 borders plus a little miscellaneous something down there. So I'm going to be away next weekend. I will not be making a Flosstube video, but more on that in a moment. I think I may take this with me to work on because it's pretty compact and I'm down into just the one color, the blue thread, and I can use my magnifying lamp and that'll be great. Now, I did have a new start. I was chomping at the bit last week to have a new start, and I did. So this is by Beth Twist, Heartstring Sampler. It's a little Christmas thing. Yes, this weekend that starts today is Nativity Sal weekend. Theoretically, I'm working on this. That is, theoretically, I would have started this weekend, but I just wanted to start it. So I just got a little bit done. It's a little Quaker design. The words are "Love and joy come to you" from Here We Come a Wassailing Christmas Carol. So that'll be cute. Make a little pillow, I think, out of that. There's another one I got at the same time, which is this one, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee, another Christmas-themed Quaker piece, and it comes with this little framed thing with the words, as well as these designs, which are the same. They're the completion of the designs that are in the edge of this. So that's a nice little ensemble. I might try to work on that too. Although it's, again, there's a lot more stitching than you would think. This one has red and white. It has white stitching. So I would choose a fabric that the white would show up on. In this picture, I think it's hard to see. And I don't remember if those were freebies or if those were, small little charts that she has on her website or somewhere like that. So I'm not sure exactly where those came from. That is, I know where they came from. It's Beth Twist Heartstring Sampler, but I don't remember where I got them. And so one other cross-stitch thing that I will talk about today is that I have a fully finished object. And so it's funny. Shall I show it? Sure. This is Spell of the Moon by Blackbird Designs. I stitched this year on 32 count Dune or something, Lugana, using the called for DMCs. And I enjoyed it very much. Even the tree, the little borders, the little typical little black snowflakes or whatever they are that is so typical of Blackbird. And I put a black print on the back and some black rickrack around it. And as I was making this, there were a few things that I thought about. One is that I have no idea how to install rickrack, so this might be entirely wrong. I think it looks okay. Secondly, I wasn't sure how full to make it. I wanted it full enough that it wouldn't sag, and I stuffed it with the crushed walnut shells. After I was underway with that, I thought maybe I should have done it with sawdust, which is, you can pack it firmly without it being so puffy. You know, you can make it sort of a flat brick of sawdust, but I didn't do that. And then the third thing is that I got the bottom of it stitched where I had it open, and I realized that I had to stitch it on both sides because the rickrack was only basted in, and there were enough gaps in the stitching that the walnut shells were falling out. So I had to do that. But I gave this, so here's the story. When I made this, I made it I had in mind to give it to Cindy for her birthday. Her birthday is October 31st. So it's sort of fitting that a little Halloween themed item might be something that one would give her. And though she does not like the color orange, she likes Halloween stuff. So this seems good. And I knew that I wanted to show it on this video, and I'm not making a video next week, which is closer to her birthday. And she's going to be gone for her birthday. So I gave it to her last night, and I said, so after you unwrap that, I have a request, and you have to, once you've seen it, you have to guess what the request is. Well, she couldn't guess. Isn't that nice of her? But the request was that I be allowed to have it back in order to put it in today's video. But I will deliver it back to you possibly before you even watch this video, Cindy. I knew I could not show it in my video this week and then turn around and give it to Cindy because she watches the videos. So anyway, and I couldn't tell her, don't watch my video until after I've seen you. That would have been weird too. She may have suspected all along that I was going to give her that. I don't know. She's a smart person, so perhaps she did. So, that is what I have worked on in cross stitch. I've been thinking a lot about my itchy palms, my palms that are itching to start things. I mentioned that I bought the Words of Wisdom red box, which has arrived. I have it right here. I've looked at it. I'm not going to say anything about what's in it other than to say, of course, it has charts in it. I know. I haven't given anything away, though, I promise. That it's not a spoiler. And one or two of them are candidates for me to start soon. And probably almost all of them, if not all of them, are candidates to start sometime. But I am committed to finishing Mathilde before I start another one of the smallish Hands Across the Sea samplers. So that has to be the next thing that I finish in that vein. I am working on this. This is a new start. This Love and Joy item as a Christmas themed stitching on the third weekend of every month. So that's this weekend. So I'll be working on that this weekend. And I still have it in mind to start Harriet Salt, which I sort of paged through my fabric, both what I just bought and in England as well as the other pieces that I have here, to get an idea of what I might start that on. And that is not going to be a quick thing. My goal will not be to finish that in any kind of a great pace because it's very large. So I know that that's unrealistic. And I have other things I'm working on. For instance, this week I didn't even touch Hannah Campbell, which I really like and enjoy. So that is clearly, and you might have noticed that I haven't shown you either of my full coverage pieces in a while. Yeah, that will change. That will change. But right now I'm following I'm bitten by the sampler bug, and that's what I'm going to allow myself to do. A couple of stitches that I want to do as Christmas presents, which Yes. So we'll see. Okay, so next week I will not be making a Flosstube. Because I'm afraid I won't remember to talk about it, I will say right now, before we get into the variety show, that Cindy and I are going to do a galloping horse video. We're going to record it Tuesday, and I hope to upload it Wednesday or Thursday next week. So though there won't be a Flosstube, there will be a quilting video, and I'll have some things, and she has some things. She has a beautiful quilt that she probably by next Tuesday will have finished the top and maybe even have it loaded to quilt. And I have a couple things, maybe 3 things that I'm working on. So that I'll be able to show you, and who knows what I'll discover when I go pawing through my stuff. Okay. Variety show this week. When I was looking at my pictures from our trip to England, it sort of took me down the rabbit trail of looking at other trips I've taken. And one of the most amazing trips that I've taken was to Iceland in 2016. Now, if you had asked me when I went to Iceland, I would have said it was more recent than that. But it was 2016, which is some years ago. I went with Kimberly, and we went August 28th through September 6th or something for, I think, 8 days or 9 days. And we flew to Reykjavik, which is what you do. I don't think there's any other way to get there. And we rented a car and we drove around. And I've mentioned this trip before on my videos, but I'm not sure I've shown a lot of pictures. And if you've seen this before, then I'm sorry. I'll catch you next time. But we just had the most marvelous time in Iceland. Now, part of it is because we had a great fun time together, and we had already traveled together in Europe and in Alaska at that point. So we knew that we would be compatible travel companions. But the country of Iceland is just amazing. It is, I think the word I mostly use to describe it is otherworldly. Otherworldly. It is like a different planet in some ways, except that everybody speaks English and they use credit cards there. But we rented a car, and we rented a little device. It's probably about the size of a credit card, except it's all rounded and, nice. It's not angular, which was some sort of a magic internet thing. We used to say, do you have the internet in your pocket? Yep, got it. And so we would go, and it's a Wi-Fi thing that connected to, I'm going to guess, satellite. And that was something that was recommended for travel, because cell service is not necessarily available, because the island is very sparsely populated. And so the country, the island, i.e. the country, it's not a large country. So we had the internet with us everywhere we went, which was great because it meant we could look at the maps there. It meant that we could, keep in touch with people and load pictures on Facebook and the things that one does. And it also meant that we had a connection in case something should go wrong, which nothing went wrong. But so I'm going to throw up some pictures here. Kimberly is a great planner, and we both enjoy planning a trip, and so we had a good time with that. I'm just trying to get my computer up because I have a file here in case I lose track of what I might want to remember to say. So first of all, I'm not going to pronounce the names of any place, except maybe 2 places that we went to, but I will put them across the bottom of the screen if I can figure out how to get the funny, I shouldn't say funny, is it a Roman alphabet? Yes, the non-Roman characters that appear in Icelandic place names and words. So we rented this little car. I mean, we didn't know what we were going to rent. We just picked a category, and when we got there, this is what they provided us. And this has been an ongoing, it will be probably on my deathbed. Kimberly will come and visit me, and I will say that was a really sharp looking car we had in Iceland, and she will laugh because she thought it wasn't sharp looking, but she is amused that I think it's sharp looking. So anyway, this was our car. I'm going to stick a picture up of our car. And we went to the Blue Lagoon, which is a very famous, it's full of hot spring water, but it's not a natural, spring area. The spring is there, but the spa is built in order to take advantage of the spring. And it has that blue color because the water has minerals in it which are from glacial outflow, which that is anywhere around the world. If you see that particular color, then you can know that the water has a glacial origin somewhere, somewhere upstream. There's a glacier. You can see that in, I've noticed that in Alaska and in Switzerland. So that is typical. And so Kimberly wanted to do that, and I didn't want to do that. So we went there, and I just waited for her in the car, and I took a few pictures, and then I went and sat in the car and in order to take a little nap, because of course we'd flown overnight and hadn't slept to speak of. So this is just going to be some stories from this trip, and I'll stick some pictures in from time to time. They were working on the parking lot right next to where we had parked. And, jackhammers and, a lot of noisy things, and a little miniature steam shovel type thing to scoop out whatever debris out of the ditch or the thing that they were building or unbuilding, digging. And I fell sound asleep despite the noise. And Kimberly was at the spa for about 2 hours. And I had I can't remember if I set an alarm, but I knew that she would be coming out. Or maybe she texted me when she was about to come out. Maybe that was it. So I somehow was aware that I needed to wake up, and I could not wake up. And I remember my head was leaned back against the headrest. I remember putting my arm up behind my head in order to force my head to go forward because I just couldn't move. I was paralyzed with sleep. And it was I'm sure it's too bad she wasn't there when I was waking up, because she probably could have gotten me to say some funny things in my lack of awareness. But we managed to stay safe driving to our first location, which was near a waterfall. And that is not any feat of memory for me to say that, because everywhere we went, there were waterfalls, and it's called a foss, F-O-S-S is the spelling of that word. So there's all these different fosses. And so we made, after a while, when we realized we were going to see 1 or 2 or 5 waterfalls every day, it was sort of like, well, what is the waterfall of the day? And of course, they're beautiful. And Iceland is full of waterfalls because it's full of glaciers and it's full of springs. And it's, just spectacular everywhere. And the other interesting thing about it, especially that first day, is we were driving through relatively young Earth, Earth's crust area. Young as in, it was only, 800 years old maybe, since it had been laid down by volcanic activity, lava flows. And it was, again, I'm sorry this is going to be an overworked word, but otherworldly. In fact, I said to her as we were driving along, looking at this rumpled landscape with really no vegetation other than moss and the occasional really low shrub, I said, I think we need to be sure that we pull over at some point in order to walk on the planet's surface. And I said that unconsciously thinking of Star Trek or something, because it just looked like we were on some sort of alien world. It was just wild. Another interesting thing about Iceland is that there are no trees. There are no native trees. I think that's true. There are some trees that are growing, I'll say now, in the north central part of the country, but I think they were brought as seedlings by settlers, and maybe thousands of years ago, but they haven't spread. They don't grow everywhere. There are bushes, there are low bushes, and there's heather, which I have some pictures of, very beautiful. It was in bloom when we were there. But it's just, you would call it bare. Oh, it's grass. There's pastures for their billions of sheep and the Icelandic ponies. And I wouldn't want to call it barren, but it's different. It's very different from any place I've been before. Another interesting thing about Iceland is that there's quite a bit of roadkill, and 98% of the roadkill that we saw was seagulls. I don't know why. And it isn't as if there's lots of traffic. I mean, we would drive an hour and see 3 cars. Again, the country is, the whole population of the country when we were there in 2016, haven't looked up the stats right now, but it wouldn't be that much different, I don't think. The whole population was 315,000 people of the entire country. And 200,000 of that lives in Reykjavik, and 30,000 live in Akureyri, which is the second largest city. And the rest of the 100,000 people, or 85,000 people, live scattered, and I mean scattered, on the rest of the island. That you would not necessarily see another farmstead from your farmstead, even though the country's wide open. You know, there aren't any trees to block your way, but you wouldn't necessarily see anybody else. All the land you looked at might be yours from anywhere that you lived in Iceland. Even if you were a prosperous sheep farmer, for example. So it was just so different from that standpoint. There were 1-lane bridges, which is fine if you can see the other end of the bridge and there's a clear protocol of if someone is already on the bridge, you wait. But it's unlikely there's going to be anyone on the bridge because the population is so sparse. So you just drive across the bridge, which is going over a stream or a river. There's one section of Iceland. There is one road. It's Route 1. It's sort of in a way, it's like Alaska in that regard, except that Alaska is much larger. In the southern part of Alaska, there's one main road. I mean, there's other roads, but there's really one highway, if you will, that goes around Alaska. And in Iceland, there's one road. It's Route 1. And most of our driving was on Route 1. And we planned our trip that way. We plotted out, we don't want to drive too far the first day, so we're going to stay here, and this is what we're going to see, and that sort of thing, all the way around. Every place we stayed was a nice little hotel, had a restaurant connected with it, I think, in every case. Everybody spoke English, and every place they took a credit card. We were advised to get some cash because if you were driving and you needed gas after 8:30 at night, you would have to use cash because the gas station was closed. Now, in the United States, if the gas station is closed, you use your card at the pump. But here, you use cash. And I think we did actually get gas after 8:30 at night once, and I can't remember exactly how that worked. But anyway, we did see a lot of sheep. We did not see sheep blocking our way as we were driving, which is something that I think we'd been led to believe is possible in Iceland. Just a couple of times we saw sheep sort of along the road, not in a pasture, but a lot of where we were driving, the sheep had vast pastures that they were in. We also saw Icelandic ponies, which was really fun. We stopped at one point because we could see ponies up in this pasture, you know, I'll say within calling distance, because I stood at the gate and I called them, and about 5 of them came. And they came and we petted them and enjoyed them. And I don't know if they're starved for human contact. I mean, they couldn't be that used to tourists, because though we were on the main road in Iceland, there just wasn't much traffic. It wasn't as if tourists were a steady stream there and they expected to get a handout. I don't know. Another interesting thing about Iceland, which was similar to when my husband and I drove around Alaska, is that we had a cooler with us, and we must have bought it because we didn't carry a cooler on the airplane, I don't think, because it was just easier and more secure a feeling to carry our lunch with us, to be able to stop along the way and make lunch, which we did. So there are black sand beaches in Iceland from volcanic sand. It was very atmospheric at times with, you know, mist and low clouds and the mountain peaks, volcanic mountain peaks sticking up out of it. We went to, I'm going to try pronouncing this, Thingvellir, which is it's a very important historic site in Iceland. The ancient government was centered there, but it's geologically interesting because it's where the European and the North American tectonic plate are separating from each other. And it's on dry land rather than in a trench in the ocean. So it can be measured and seen. You can walk between the two tectonic plates. And, you know, it's from a geological standpoint, it's very important and interesting. We took a little road trip on a peninsula north of Reykjavik, which is where the volcano that was the site of Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, that volcano was the place. I'm not going to say it. I'll put it down here if I can figure out how to do that. And it was, you know, it's a national park there, and the volcano is as dormant as any volcano in Iceland is. So I don't think there was any steam or anything coming out of it. There are active volcanoes in Iceland. A couple of years ago, there was one that sprang up, that arose, and new land was formed, a new mountain was formed. And a couple of years ago, I put some pictures. I'll find some and stick in here which were screenshots from some webcams that were following the progress of that volcano. But there are other features, geothermic features. There's mud pots and there's geysers. In fact, the word geyser, which we spell Geyser in the United States, originated, I think, in Icelandic. And I might have a picture that shows it on a sign next to a geyser that we visited. So if you visit Iceland, there are several ways to do it. One is what we did, is we rented a car and we stayed in hotels. Another is to rent a car and to stay in farm stay type places where farmers have opened their homes to travelers. And so you pay a price. It's like a bed and breakfast, except that it's truly a family-oriented thing. You're staying actually on the farm. We almost did that by accident. It's a story for another time. A third thing that is very popular to do is to rent a camper van and just drive around and camp. Camp meaning sleep in the van, but you would still need services. You know, you'd need a restaurant. It doesn't have these camper vans are just a place to sleep. You can't cook in them and that kind of thing. Though I suppose you could carry a stove and set it on the ground and cook something. So those are 3 popular ways. You can take a tour, which would go on the Golden Circle, which is not on Route 1, but it's a smaller road that goes into the interior, and it visits some of the famous sites of Iceland, which in some ways they're made famous because they're on the Golden Tour, but it's a variety. You see some volcanic landscape, and you see some geysers and mud pots and that kind of thing, and you see the springs, and you see Thingvellir and things like that. The food in Iceland is fantastic, especially if you like fish and langostinos. I think that's what they're called. Rock lobsters. That's a big thing. I had some fantastic food there. You do not have to eat pickled ancient shark, fermented shark meat. You don't have to eat that. In fact, I'm not sure that it's easy to get. They no longer have puffin on the menu. I think puffin is endangered or something. We only saw one puffin. We were there too late for the big seabird season. So if I go back, I would want to go in the summer when there's a lot more tourists in the summer, but there's a lot more of the seabirds, which are one of the features of Icelandic summer, the nesting areas, rookeries for all these different birds. We took a ferry to Grimsey Island, which is, it's a tiny little island. It's about 2 miles long, and it straddles the Arctic Circle. So we actually walked from whatever the northern part of the zones are to the Arctic area up there. It was a beautiful sunny day. Kind of funny. Here we are at the Arctic Circle. We did not see Northern Lights. I think some people did, even at the time that we were there, which was the beginning of September. But if you go in the winter, it's almost guaranteed to see Northern Lights. And you can drive on Route 1 all winter, all the way around the island, I think. I'm pretty sure you can, because that's one of their main ways of getting goods transported to the villages and towns. One of the places we stayed, the permanent population is 8. I mean, clearly it had more population in the summer because there were people staying there and the people who were running the hotels and restaurants there. But it is a sparse place. I'll have to talk about Reykjavik another time. It's sort of a whole different experience, especially where we stayed. But anyway, that was Iceland. I hope you enjoyed a little travelogue. It wasn't organized. It was just sort of my recollections of a fantastic trip, and I recommend Iceland very much. I would go back. In fact, I hope to go back sometime. All right, well, I think that we covered a lot of ground today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Flosstube and Variety Show. This is number 95. I think I'm going to hit 100 before the end of this year. Oh yes, the 2 Nerge hoops, the 2 rectangular ones, I think only 2 of you left comments on my video 2 videos ago, which would have been before I went to England, about those. So I will reply to those comments and I'll get them to you. Yes, I think that's all. So I hope you have a great stitching week. Enjoy this autumn weather, and many blessings to you, friends.